It is I, the Arma God, and in this video, I am going to show you how to garrison infantry in Arma 3. We are going to create an ultra-dynamic CQB environment including prisoners and surrendering hostiles. Before we get started, we will need two mods, Eden Enhanced and Ace. Once you get those two mods installed, go ahead and launch your game with whatever else you need and begin placing down the assets you are going to use for this project. Now that you have everything you need placed down, let's go ahead and begin with concept. What is the purpose of garrisoning a structure? How many structures do you plan on being garrisoned? What is the path of travel you expect your players to take for your mission? These are all questions that you need to have answered to create a really nice environment for intense gameplay. Keep in mind that friendly AI cannot breach rooms. There are some mods like LAMs that allow AI to move through buildings, but that is hardly breaching structures. I do not recommend having AI do complex tasks such as breaching buildings. However, I do recommend AI perform simpler tasks like operating vehicles, helicopters, logistics, close air support, or even defending ground that you have taken. So you can use these tools that I'm about to show you in any way you desire. I'm just going to show you how to get to the point of creating. Another thing you need to consider is how many players are going to be part of this mission. Scale the mission for your intended player count. You don't want people doing the same thing over and over again. You don't want people going through the same town for 3 hours straight, so on. Make sure you are building your mission for its intended gameplay. For example, today I'm going to show you how to set this up in a more milsim capacity, but you do not need to go as hardcore as I am in this tutorial for whatever it is that you're making, but generally I recommend forcing players into a certain type of gameplay flow. With how I'm going to be doing things here, if players are not watching each other's backs and working together, they are going to die. So it forces the players to work together like a military unit would. Let's go ahead and start with a pre-placement. This is not the final placement. You do not just do this thing and call it good. That is lazy and your mission is going to suck. We want to use the pre-placement just to get people into positions that we may use them in and then go in later by hand and adjust everything exactly how we need. Let's grab our hostile force and right-click on them. Under Other Tools, you will see Garrison Building. In here, I am going to select 25%, crouch, closest building. Disable path, hit update selection, and OK. Now that the entities have auto-moved, now it is time to go in and do things by hand. You just hit cancel and you move your camera to the position where you want to start adjusting AI. If my intended path of travel for my players is attacking from this direction, we should have these AI covering the direction that the players are going to be moving, because these enemies are going to be holding this ground trying to remove the attacking force. So you need to put these guys in the cheekiest positions possible to give your players the hardest time you can within reason. We'll start with the first floor. This window right here is going to be the first thing that players move across. So I'm going to place an AI to cover this window. This corner isn't the best place to be, but it is defensible because from one angle, this guy is able to cover the door and the window. Now that we have this man in the position that we want him, you're going to double-click his entity icon and scroll down to Object AI. You'll see that we already have pathing disabled due to our Garrison module that we just barely used, but pathing only really does one thing effectively. This will make the AI hold one spot and they will rotate and do whatever else they need. So this would be a good selection if you have these guys holding an area where players can be coming in from multiple different angles. But since I have an intended path for players to go through, this pathing option will generally cause the AI to be looking at a wall, and when players enter a room, the AI's back is facing the player, so the players just shoot him in the back, and it's absolutely no threat, and it looks terrible. So instead of using pathing for this individual specifically, I am going to disable move. Disabling move will cancel any type of rotation that is outside of 45 degrees. While pathing prevents the entity from walking around, he can still rotate just fine. whereas moving will only allow him to rotate 45 degrees any which way in the direction he is pointing. Since I have him covering 2 points where players can be moving through, I'm going to have him look in between both of these entry points so that he can engage players moving through the window and into the room. Now that we got this man placed, let's go take a look at his battle buddy back here. If players might be moving through this door, you can have this guy watching out through one of these windows, but since I already have a predefined path for my players to go on, this guy is going to hold this door in case players make it through that front door. Now, instead of having him crouched, I'm actually going to make him go prone, as well as disabling his move. If the door swings outward, the door will be slightly covering his line of sight, so I am going to be placing him over here so he can see more of the players if they decide to come through here. Now that the first floor is completed, let's talk about the second floor. Stairwells are very dangerous to breach, and players will often just run up these things like complete morons. Punish this behavior. I am going to be placing an AI right here on top of the stairwell in a similar configuration to that last man I placed by making this dude go prone, disabling his move, and having him watch these stairs. Not just watching the stairs generally, but a super specific point, which is the location where players have to come up. If players are not breaching this effectively, they will die by this man. And just to shake it up, I'm going to place this guy over here in a crouching position. It isn't the most effective way for this guy to cover this room, but I don't want hostiles consistently in the same positions every single room I put them in, because we want variety. At this point, we'll start talking about hostiles surrendering or having hostages within the structure. For both concepts, I'll just use this guy.
Hamburger, please! What? Can I have a hamburger, please?
You're gonna double click on his entity icon. Then we're gonna scroll down to ACE options. Make unit handcuffed and make unit surrender. If you are going to have civilians held captive by the enemy, I usually have them on make unit surrender. Reason being, they'll have their hands behind their heads and their elbows outstretched, so it's a bit easier for players to identify somebody surrendering rather than somebody who just simply doesn't have a weapon. For the other bit where it says make unit handcuffed, the hands will be behind his back, restrained by the wrist near his lower back. And when you are breaching structures at night with fuzzy nods and there's explosions going off everywhere and your players are suffering epilepsy, that might not be the most effective way to have a unit be detained. So I prefer the surrendering option for both civilians being held captive, hostages, and hostiles surrendering to the attacking force. Now, you don't just want to put this guy somewhere, like right here, for example. We want him to be in a spot that makes it really difficult for players to handle. Even better if this is an HVT that players are supposed to capture for mission success. I want this guy to be the hardest man to capture. For example, if I have him on the first floor, players can come in, kill these two guys, grab the hostage, and leave without clearing the rest of the building. I am going to put him upstairs in the last room he's going to enter. And not just that, but I'm going to be using him as a human shield. We're going to put him about right there, and since AI are right-handed, he will have just enough room to shoot through that door, if not through the hostage in order to hit the players, which is even better, because then the players will have to get on the guy with medical and start helping him out and run the risk of him dying. So that looks great so far, but we want to run our scenario and double check and make sure that everything is where we want it. So this house spawns with some boxes and shit. My unit's mod list has a script that places furniture throughout every single building within the mission. And this guy is slightly inside this box, but it's not too big of a deal. If I'm in Zeus, I can move him if I want to. And in the editor, I can just simply pull him out a little bit. So I'm gonna keep that in mind when I go make my edit. Likewise for this guy, he's just got a knee inside of a fridge. Since it's not too big of a deal, I don't necessarily need to mess with this, but I am going to go into the editor and adjust him just like the other guy. Okay, this guy got force moved because of these backpacks right here, so I'm going to move him ahead and directly in front of this door frame. One of the things that Ace does is if this guy's right here and he gets downed and the players are just trying to rush into that room, that guy's going to body block that door, which makes things even more complex, and that's lovely. We want that. And this dude here is absolutely perfect. So let's go make those edits.
Living in the sunlight, loving in the moonlight, having a wonderful time. Having got a lot, I don't need a lot.
After you have everything set up how you want it, make sure to run a playtest to confirm that the gameplay is how you desire. Sometimes this happens, by the way. There's not too much that you can do about it aside from making the individual crouch.
He's only a dog, living in the sunlight, loving in the moonlight.
And just like that, you are ready to start creating more dynamic CQB gameplay for you and your friends. Now, if you do not want to go through all of this, especially on an operation level where there's tons and tons of buildings, towns, and objectives, come join Task Force Trauma, where we do all of this for you to the absolute highest quality possible. Task Force Trauma is Arma 3's premier tactical realism community, and we are producing some, if not the greatest Arma 3 milsim content ever. Come check us out, like, comment, subscribe. I appreciate you guys for stopping by. If you would like me to cover something else, let me know in the comments below. We will see you next time. Bye-bye.